Hello everyone, I'm back again with another comic review video, and this time it's going to be a little different than the other ones. This time, I don't like the book that I'm going to be showing you, and I want to show you why I don't particularly like it. I'm going to try and do this as I'm not going to try and insult this book at all, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to come across that way because I really don't like it. This is probably my least favorite comic. Least favorite comic that is getting way too much credit for what it deserves, which is a shame. So the comic, as you probably see from the title, is Powers, and I have a couple trades of Powers over here. I'm pretty sure I got each one in the clearance section of half-price books for like $2 each. I have Powers 1, Powers 2, and Powers 3. Alright, so I've read through each of these trades, and usually, and in the cases of some other comics like Invincible, which I think is my favorite comic, the first two trades or so, they're not really that spectacular. It takes a while for it to really get really good, and that's kind of what I was hoping after I read this first trade of Powers, that it would get much better as I kept going. Unfortunately, that's not true. As far as I know for the first three trades, I'm not going any farther because I just can't do it. It's first of all, it's not even worth my money if I found 4 to buy it for $2. It's like not even worth my time to read. I want to explain why I think that to you, because I don't want people to see that and go, oh, hey, that's supposed to be really good, which, from what I hear from other people, yes, it's supposed to be really good, but I'm sorry, it's not. It's really not very good at all, which is kind of a bummer, because it's got some, at least a, big name on it, Brian Michael Bendis. If you know anything about Brian Michael Bendis, he generally, he makes a lot of graphic novels. He works with Marvel now, and the main attribute to him that people give him is he's extremely wordy and loves making linked bubbles, where you have like one bubble, a little blurb, and then another one, and another one, and another one. He'll just keep going, and he does this to an extreme extent where it's just irritating and hard to read. And you combine this with his artist, Michael Oeming, and you get stuff like this, where the book is full of like a bunch of little awkward panels that don't really progress the story at all. The art is just atrocious, and it feels like Oeming should never, ever be an artist. He doesn't understand how panels work. He doesn't understand how the transitions go from one thing to another. I never know if I'm really supposed to be reading across to the other side of the book, like in a spread format or not, because some of the bubbles may get really close to the edge, and some not. Like, some of the things are just irritating, where he chooses to continuously make the same linked bubble go on and on and on, but it's not telling you anything more. It's like everything that could have gone wrong with this book went wrong with this book. So, aesthetically, the art on the cover looks way better than anything on the inside. The inside is just gross. It's horrible. It's like if Oeming went at this with like a Sharpie, didn't even sketch anything. His anatomy is just disgusting. Not in the fact that he like sexes people up, which he doesn't. It's that he can't draw people. He can't draw anything really. And like I said, I really don't want to sound like I'm insulting, but I know I am. It's just the art. Sometimes there's books where the art can be really bad, but if it's an interesting story, I don't really care, and I'll be able to get through it, and it'll be okay. There's other opposite ends of the spectrum where the story can be really bad, but the art's really, really cool, and I'll keep the book just for that. This suffers greatly in both ends of the spectrum. It has... Sorry, Brian Michael Bendis, I think this is the worst thing he's written. This is like... The story is basically... This is trying to be Watchmen, but it's not even close. It's basically, if you know anything about Alan Moore's top 10, It's kind of like that, but it's basically the whole city that this main detective works in. There's a lot of people with superpowers, and they have different names, and he's like investigating different murders and cases that show up in that city, which is basically top 10, and it's basically Watchmen, and those are successful comics. This, however, is not. It's just not written very well. It's really hard to follow the story when Oming doesn't understand how to progress the panels. There's certain bits where you're just supposed to understand, okay, now, like, there's bits where there's TV going by on the bottom screen, and we're supposed to follow this text of what's going on with the TV while we're reading this, I guess. I'm not really sure, because you never really understand what's actually happening in the story. Not to the extent where, like, what even happened between this panel and that panel, even though that will happen. It's the fact that it is so slow that there's like whole conversations that were totally pointless, and they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and nothing ever really gets across. This main trade right here I'm holding is them investigating a murder of a superhero, which immediately I'm just like, Watchmen, and it's not even an interesting mystery. It's like they don't even like uncover, different clues eventually that lead them down different paths. It's just them slowly trudging through events, and it's really irritating to go through. I stopped on this spread, so I didn't go any farther, because I think this is like the only spread in this entire book that I enjoyed, because it's kind of fun. And then, Oming couldn't have goofed it that bad. There's only 4 panels on this spread. The detective is talking with this girl who's with him along the ride as they're investigating, and he gets cut off as some superheroes in the background like blast through a building and start fighting, and they look back and just continue their conversation. And I just found that kind of fun. I wish the book was more like that, where it's like you're trying to put this noir bit into the detectives and put them in a world with superheroes and see what happens there. That's a different idea than Watchmen, and that would have been pretty cool. Okay, Watchmen was pretty close to that idea, but it wasn't exactly to the fullest extent what this could have been. And elements like that could have really nailed that, but there's one spread to I don't know how many others where it just hurts to read it. Sometimes I turn a page and I think to myself, I'm just not ready for this. I'm going to have to put the bookmark in, shut this, and come back later when I'm in a better mood, because I just read 5 pages of this and it's kind of pissing me off because it's so bad. I'm trying to find particular spreads that just really drive you crazy. Like, this is just a mess of panels and words all over the place. It's like Oming doesn't understand how transitions work. Do you actually read this top to bottom, left to right on either page, or do you read it across and then read straight this way? You don't really figure that out. You just have to read like this and do this until you realize, hey, wait, I think I'm skipping something, and then you read over there. But the thing is, the panels, a lot of them, the layouts look kind of like that sometimes, to where you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to go, across to the other side or not, and it doesn't happen all the time, so you never really know what you're doing. So it's just hard to read, the story's not interesting, and I hate saying it, but this is just the worst comic I am. I was saving it particularly to make a video explaining how much I don't like this comic. I don't want to sound like I'm just straight up complaining, because, everything I'm saying hopefully is a good enough reason to why people just should not read this. It's full of just, nothing but bad panel layouts, bad panel art, bad writing, and just the dialogue, the story, everything that you could describe a comic as, this fails at immensely. And that just is so upsetting to me, because I was like, who read that and thought that was amazing? You know, I don't understand it at all. If you read Powers and went past 3, and you can tell me that, you know, it turns into the greatest series ever, then sure, go right ahead. But I can't see it happening with either of these two people on this book. Bendis is just way too wordy for this book to work, though his ideas might be able to work eventually if he can learn to shut up every once in a while. Michael Oeming just needs to go. He, even later, especially later, he seems like he doesn't want to draw anything. There's actually a whole issue, it feels like, in Volume 3 that is just them in a court case, and you have like nothing but solid text to read and like loose sketches. That would be, you know, the guy in the courtroom sketching the you know, defendant or whatever, and that's it. That's all your art. And though it's an interesting idea, which there's a lot of things in here where he'll do interesting ideas, but they all just flop, and that's really upsetting to see, because I want to see comics experiment, I want to see them do crazy ideas, I want to see them break away from superheroes, which is what this was kind of trying to do. But everything failed about it, and it's just so upsetting. And in the end of this first trade here, Bendis includes the full script of issue 1, which, like I care, I mean, I could barely get through it the first time, why would I want to read it again? You go through Michael Oeming's sketchbook, which, once again, like, you can't draw worth crap. Why would I want to look at this? Well, so, I don't know what to say anymore, really. That's basically the first volume, at least. There's some interesting bits where he'll have cameos of other characters show up, but they're nothing that really makes the book solid. Volume 2 is just another story that they're investigating. The first one is solved in the first trade. This is a totally different story solved in this own trade, which is quite small. Actually, it's kind of hard to say that it's small, because this first one included a crapload of script. If you see that white band in there, and the black band, the black is the story, the white is the script. Just the first issue script. Yeah, like, he's wordy. And this trade here, once again, gets really, really wordy. Some horrible panel decisions. This just kind of drives me crazy. I don't know what we're supposed to be thinking when we see this, or reading through all this, which takes a long time. You get panels and pages like this where it just keeps going. You just gotta keep busting through it like, oh god. Every page you see, you're like, oh jeez, oh jeez, oh jeez. It's the kind of things that just really drive you nuts sometimes. I actually landed on the spread that is kind of referencing that scene I showed before where the superheroes bust by, except it's just this 3D dude jumping in. I don't know. I don't really know. They don't really explain it. And then we're back to this crap, so the book is... I was going to say hit or miss, but there's no hit, it's just miss. There's nothing interesting in this story that you got from the other one. There's actually, I was just flipping through it, there's this scene, a chase scene, that literally, there's like, let me see, 1, 2, 3, other than a couple words, out of about 8 pages, there's no dialogue. And I can actually just, you know, read the comic at a normal pace. But the problem is Michael Oeming doesn't really seem to understand action-to-action moments of illustrating a comic, so it still fails. And I'm looking at it like, what is even happening? This is... I got 2 and 3 at the same time. In the clearance, just like I said, it was $2 each. Still don't think it was worth it, but anyway, I did want to get to 3 because I think 3 is the best one I read. I don't want this to be all horrible. 3 was actually semi-enjoyable. The story itself, once again, was more of that crap, and it just kept going and going. It was hard to read, and the story wasn't interesting, the art was terrible, but there's bits like this that make the book, that are awesome. There's little side advertisements, like fake advertisements for their world, and then like little mini comics and fake interviews and things like that that are actually pretty fun to read, but sometimes they get a little over the top. and uninteresting. Like there's a whole interview with some characters that I didn't really care about that you just go through reading and reading, and you're like, okay, well, this is not going to end. I don't think I can even read through all this. It's like a whole page of straight text. Okay, well, I don't really want to go through that. I wanted to jump to this issue though. The most enjoyable issue of Powers is, I believe it's issue 7, which is kind of terrible that issue 7 is just now showing up in volume 3. Just complaining about that. It's a whole issue with Warren Ellis showing up, and he is basically taken through by the main detective, and he's kind of with him along for this one-shot story, detective story that's going on, and he's kind of complaining about superhero comics, and he's complaining about like everything that comics can't really do. And it's really awesome because I can totally relate to everything that he's saying, and it's really cool. I don't know how much this is actually his words. I don't know if he wrote his own bits, and Bendis just kind of put it together with his story, but it's a really fun issue. It's the first issue in Powers I actually enjoyed, which is kind of a shame. One, because it took that long, but two, because it's a one-shot and it's over after that, and then it goes to another story about this character, the Shark. And then you go to that court case, and you get those pages like this where you just get a sketch and text, a sketch and text, a sketch and text, and it just gets hard to get through. Sometimes you don't even have a sketch, you just have text. It's like I'm just reading from that script anymore. And fortunately, at least in the back, you have more of that fun stuff. Like there's a fake coloring book that they give out at the police detective area, and there's some really funny mini comics in there that they're trying to show to kids in this fictional world, and that's enjoyable at least. But it was definitely not worth going through all of that garbage of a story to try and get to those points that were semi-enjoyable. I'm glad I at least got that far to enjoy those bits of the story, but it's really a painful book to get through. I would definitely not recommend it, ever. If you're interested in that type of comic, like I said, check out Alan Moore's Top 10. Check out Alan Moore, again, Watchmen. I would check out the book over the movie in that case, though. Top 10 is only 2 trades long. It's really not that long. It's a really interesting book. It's not as good as Watchmen. It's still really good, and I'll probably review it eventually. But it's basically the same idea of what Powers is trying to be. And Powers just kind of flops, so that's upsetting. So, at least I'm going to end on that note. I would definitely not recommend Powers, but if you've read it and you really enjoy it in those first 3 trades, tell me what I'm missing, because I would like to have liked it, but, you know, like I said, it's just really not for me, and I really don't see it being a good comic for much of anybody. So, let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.